the world, and it's clearly visible. And she said, yes, that really, she felt that was so.
As Diana began to learn her royal craft, the world recognised a star in the making. September the 15th, 1984. Diana had done her duty by her prince and by the nation, with William the heir and Harry the spare.
There was not a lot of sympathetic understanding between the men in the royal household and their wives. I think Charles was very much of this mould. Rather look at your wife and think, well, come on, old girl, get on with the job. You know, this is your duty. You know, everyone's looking at you. Pull yourself together, because that's how they've been brought up themselves. You don't show emotion. You don't have feelings. You've got the whole country looking at you. You know, do what you're there to do.
There is a very firm feeling amongst many of Diana's close friends that it was really at this point that her fairy tale life started to ebb away.
It was only after Prince Harry was born that really she felt things changed. She felt that Camilla had come back strongly on the scene.
Camilla Shand had first been a girlfriend of Prince Charles 20 years before, just after he left Cambridge University. They were said to be in love, but with Prince Charles unwilling to commit to marriage, Camilla married Andrew Parker Bowles and had a family. But she and Charles never stopped being friends. As Diana began to find the pressure and the claustrophobic atmosphere more and more oppressive, she became increasingly desperate and tried almost anything she could think of to help get her through this particular period.
There were severe cracks in that marriage, but it certainly hadn't come to light. She was very concerned about Camilla at that time, and her marriage and the state of it, her own happiness, whether her own personal happiness would ever improve. And she wanted me to look at her chart and Charles's chart. She was just looking for, I suppose, any kind of answer or any kind of light that could be shed on her predicament.
We all buy bullwhip
I gave her a little bit of acupuncture, but I also balanced the chakras and advised her particularly. I think counselling was a big part of my contribution to Princess Diana.
It was not really a relationship where we sat and pored over, you know, the stars. They didn't sort of completely inform her every move. It was more of a sort of backdrop towards a kind of counselling.
Her greatest need certainly was to have her confidence in herself restored.
I think she was enormously confused about life, and I think she went to see all these people, various people. You know, she flew off here and there to see everybody, to try and find some route for her, to try and find some stability.
Maybe in a way we represented that kind of mother figure which she always needed and wanted.
In the absence of her real mother, who had lived in Scotland and abroad since her divorce from Earl Spencer, Diana relied on a whole group of older and wiser women. Her confidants were her lifeline.
She had the most wonderful relationship with Lucia Fleischer de Lima. Lucia was like a second mother to her.
I really loved her as a daughter. I really loved her. And she was a most wonderful friend to me.
Diana and Lucia would be on the phone almost every day without fail.
She brought a lot of joy, of light, of laughter, of dramas into my life. Bridget, she made me feel young again. It's true.
What a gift.
Oh, yeah, she made me feel her age. We would share things. In a way, I don't think mothers and daughters do share. But I'll always be afraid that I didn't do enough for her, you know. I really loved her.
When Lucia asked me if I would be Diana's friend, I realized this would be a tremendous commitment and that I would be there for her. But I regarded it as such an incredible honor, and I took it very, very seriously. And I feel very good now, in retrospect, that I could be somebody who nobody knew about.
From the numbers of women whom I know who she considered friends, and we, you know, have from time to time talked about Diana, and everyone who she confided in that I'm aware of kept her confidences, were very anxious to help her and support her.
She was so hurt by the situation with Camilla. She was definitely hurt enormously. And the way she would diffuse a situation like that for her was by putting some very sweet cartoons in her bathroom at Kensington Palace. It would be like somebody else putting a dartboard and taking some darts and throwing them, as somebody might do in a bar, but that was Diana's way of dealing with it. And I even remember for a short period of time that she'd had this disagreement with Elton John, and she said, well, he's joined the ranks. I have a cartoon of him next to Camilla. And then sure enough, when they made up, she would remove this. I almost had tears in my eyes listening to her because it was such a sweet and lovely way of dealing with something that had hurt her so much.
When Diana married into the royal family, she joined what is really a great business empire. It even calls itself the Firm. And she married the chief executive officer's heir. Diana became a corporate wife, and corporate wives do not have ideas about how to improve the corporation. And if they do, well, they keep them to themselves. They're supposed to turn up at corporate functions, support their husbands, and behave in such a way in their private lives that the corporation remains untainted by scandal or gossip.
It was difficult because she had a vision for royalty for the coming century, a modern vision. She wanted to be much more open, to embrace people, to be more open with everything. If they were going to a charity event or to visit the homeless or to visit the sick, that they shouldn't just stand afar and speak to them through somebody else. She felt it was very important to show a warmth and an interest, and she felt that if one wasn't interested in it and didn't show warmth or feel warmth, one shouldn't do it. This was quite a source of difficulty for both of them. Very often she would discuss so many different duties, things they had to attend to, and even if Prince Charles listened to her approach and didn't disagree with it, he would always, under every circumstance, defer to the Queen.
My feeling about Charles is he had such a wretched childhood. He probably really couldn't have responded to her the way that she needed him to respond. She expected him to really be there for her, to support her and guide her, and he just had a completely different view of the relationship.
If Diana found Prince Charles's support lacking, it may have been partly to do with her own increasing popularity. Though her husband may not have appreciated her new informal approach to the duties of monarchy, the public, it seemed, did. And many husbands find it hard to come to terms with a wife's success.
I think he got a bit resentful of this, and he became, I'd say, a little bit sour and bitter. And in a way, I don't blame him, because, you know, he was slighted. And I remember once we went to Silverstone, a racetrack where they hold the British Grand Prix, and he was there on his own, and a little boy come up and said, "Oi, Charlie, where's Di?" And he said, "I'm sorry, she's not coming today. You better ask for your money back."
Despite the best efforts of both therapists and mother figures, the marriage was falling apart, and with the media following her every move, Diana used them to try and reveal her unhappiness to the public.
I remember once in India, the princess was going to the Taj Mahal, and everybody was at the Taj Mahal.
She visited the greatest monument to love in the world without her husband. She turned her face away when he tried to kiss her after a polo match. But hints were not enough, and eventually overcome by frustration, Diana felt compelled to tell the world the story of her miserable marriage, revealing the facts to journalist Andrew Morton via an intermediary. A cascade of gossip and rumour followed the Morton book, and the marriage was at an end. Diana and Charles separated, and in February 1996, after they had lived apart for the 3-year period required by law, Diana announced her agreement to a divorce, calling it the saddest day of my life.
When the divorce was decided, you know, I did say to her on one occasion, you know, that must be a terrible blow to you, because I know that she never really wanted that to happen.
In the end, it was all so ordinary. A unique moment in history played out in a small green room known as Court Number 1 at Somerset House. An alphabetical list of 32 couples applying for a decree nisi was before the court, with HRH the Prince of Wales versus HRH the Princess of Wales appearing last. The document issued this morning sets out that it was the Prince who lodged the petition for divorce on the grounds that the marriage had irretrievably broken down because of irreconcilable differences. It was signed by both the Prince and Princess.
On the 28th of August the same year, the decree absolute was granted, and the fairy tale was over.
On the day the divorce she never wanted was finalised, Diana, Princess of Wales, as she now is, was on familiar ground, besieged by the world's media. She kept a long-standing engagement at the English National Ballet, one of only 6 organisations she's chosen to continue to support.
On the day of the divorce, when she was in here, she said, I'm having the most terrible day. This is one of the worst days of my life, but I have to accept it, and I have to get on with it, and let's go and watch some rehearsals.
Isolated from her prince and stripped of her royal title, Diana gained the love and sympathy of divorced women the world over. As feeling free to be herself again and liberated from the constraints of royal protocol, she did what so many of them have done. She shortened her skirts, raised her heel height, and called in her hairdresser.
She said, what would you do with my hair given a free hand? And I said, well, honestly, she went, yeah, I wouldn't ask you otherwise. And I said, I'd just get rid of it. I'd just cut it all off and start again. That was a bit of an eye-opener to realise that someone's haircut could cause that much of a stir. And it wasn't even a hugely drastic haircut. It was just a bit shorter.
They were climbing on each other's backs. When Prince Charles came, 15 people turned out to say hello. The Princess of Wales came, the entire world came.
Could be flirtatious, and
it was most of the time.
Which made her even more delightful and attractive to the average person as well as photographers, so that she really combined some unique characteristics.
One of the most special was her determination that her sons would be unlike any royal princes to date. And despite her own